I'm not sure what episode we're on with these video diaries. I don't think we're probably not quite at 10 yet, but we're probably not far away. But what I wanted to talk about today was to come back to this idea of what problem we're trying to solve at Vegan Business Tribe, because actually leading you through the process that we're going through now to identify the problem and how we're going to solve it, that's going to be really useful for your business too, especially if you are a cause-led business. But the core of any business is solving a problem in return, usually for money. So it's worthwhile to you as well if you think maybe you don't have an activism-led business or you don't have what you term a vegan business yet. It's still really good to go through this idea of what problem you're trying to solve and how you're going to solve it. So the process starts out with something, and this is a new concept to me because this comes from the not-for-profit world, but it starts with something called a problem tree. So let me just share my screen with you here. Okay, so I've actually done 2 problem trees for Vegan Business Tribe because I've already been called an overachiever by some of the people on the incubator, so I need to make sure that I definitely keep that badge going. But if we look at this is problem tree number 1. And this was the big thing that hit me when I started to really look at the problem that we're trying to solve with Vegan Business Tribe. Because to me, problem tree 1 is vegans start a business to make a change for good, but they actually fail to make that change. A lot of people who start vegan businesses, they do it as their way to actually move the vegan cause forwards, but many just don't achieve that level of success that they need to actually create a significant impact. And I see it very much now that our goal and mission at Vegan Business Tribe is to change that. It's to actually help you make the change in the world that you wanted to see when you first set up your vegan business. So looking at this problem wider, that this problem tree does, if I just go back to this PDF here. So at the bottom here, I've got the problem that we've set out to address. Vegans start a business as their way to move a vegan cause forwards, but many don't achieve the level of success needed to create significant impact. And there's 3 reasons that people don't do that. And I've put these here as the root problems in green. So starting with this one in the middle, it's this fear of profit-driven strategies. Now, this might sound ridiculous to people who are setting up a business, but we've seen this since day 1 of Vegan Business Tribe. Vegans don't seem to be overly comfortable making money. And especially if they're working within the vegan sector, they perhaps think it's unethical to be making money from other vegans or, working in the animal rights cause. And that's a big issue because, as I've said many times, you can do far more good in the world with a profit than you ever do with a loss. And if you start out with this fear of making money, certain things are going to happen in your business. And going back to the problem tree, this is what we've got. This is the fallout of that. People sell their services or products with little or, sometimes without any profit margin within that. So many vegan businesses give away their service or their expertise for free or for really low cost. And what happens if you do that is you don't generate enough money to scale, and either you make very little tangible impact because you just don't have the resources, or more commonly, the founders actually burn out because they can't just create that standard of living which is sustainable and keep them running a business long term as well. So we see that a lot with vegan businesses. The second problem that we see a lot is this lack of targeted business support for companies with vegan goals. And interestingly, we were having a conversation recently in our community hub with our members about a lot of this and about why Vegan Business Tribe should stay as supporting vegans, not just companies that operate in the plant-based sector. And this was something that came up, I think, from Bethany, from Reforest Group. And she was just saying there are so many places in life as a vegan where you have to defend yourself and you can get worn out by doing that. Business support shouldn't be one of those. If you're having somebody supporting you in your business, it should be somebody who understands why you're doing what you're doing, who understands that sometimes you are going to put your ethics in front of making a profit. And they need to know that, and they need to help you build a business model around that as well. And when you don't have that, business owners, they really start to feel isolated, both personally and professionally. So that lack of targeted business support for companies with vegan goals, that is a real problem. And you might say, well, we've got that within Vegan Business Tribe. And yes, we have to an extent, but are we actually leading people through a process? Are we leading people to actually make this impact with their business? Or are we just giving them more generalized business support, but through a vegan lens? So that's something really important to realize as well, because the fallout of that, fallout of lack of targeted business support for companies with vegan goals is, we have people running vegan businesses who are quite inexperienced and lack business skills, and that leads to poor decision making and planning. So you might not know to research and test before committing your money and energy to a company. You might launch into an already saturated market perhaps, or you might just spend too long on an idea that was never really going to go anywhere, that was never really a good market fit. And then that leads again to the business just not doing well or closing down. So that was the second one. And then the third root of this problem is that I think a lot of the time, if you're vegan and you've either got a business or you want to start a business, you kind of don't see the link between your business and what you're doing and how that can actually support animal rights in a way that aligns with your business. And it's been interesting that if I say the words, your business is trying to move a vegan cause forwards, people are quite comfortable with that. And they see that as quite a nice thing and that can align with their business. If I say that your business should be doing animal rights activism, all of a sudden we're not as comfortable with that, because we view activism as, being out there marching down the street with banners or doing direct action, doing rescues, actually being an activist. And that's seen as quite a negative thing when you're doing that alongside having a business as well. And people are really, fearful of professional identity conflict or harming their business reputation. And that means that people do set up vegan businesses, or they're vegans in business, but then they lose sight of why they set up the business in the first place, because they don't ever, make that link between what they're doing and the different ways that they can support the animal rights movement that aren't that direct activism and those things that might harm their business reputation. And we've got lots of Vegan Business Tribe members who have done that really successfully as well. And again, what's the fallout of that? They make very little tangible impact. There we go. Another vegan business lost. And what these all lead to is the idea that if you don't find a way to support the animal rights movement that aligns with your business, if you do have this fear of profit-driven strategies, you see making money as unethical, and you do have this lack of targeted business support for companies with vegan goals, all that leads to one place. It leads to vegan businesses closing down and a potential business activist lost, to the movement as well. But there's other fallouts of that as well. I mean, one really important thing, whenever you see a vegan business closing down reported in the news, the kind of narrative there is the reason that it shut down was because it was vegan, or there wasn't enough people to buy that product, or there aren't enough vegans in the world, or veganism was a fad. And we've covered this a lot in Vegan Business Tribe as well, this kind of negative media whenever a vegan business shuts down. But businesses close down all the time. McDonald's recently posted that they're struggling. They're seeing a loss in they're seeing a loss in sales, but you don't see the media reporting that it's the end of meat and that people don't want to eat convenience food anymore. No, absolutely not. They're talking about the market factors and other sort of things. But whenever a vegan company shuts down, then the public perception was the reason that it wasn't successful and it closed down was because it was vegan. And that just harms the movement massively. It really just means that less impact is being generated, less people are actually inspired to launch a vegan business themselves because they believe what they're reading. And we don't have enough role models to actually inspire others to use their business as activism as well. So that's our first problem tree for Vegan Business Tribe. And it's really interesting stuff there. Now, because I am an overachiever, I also created a second problem tree that came out of that first. And it was that last point right at the top, not enough role models to inspire others to use their business for vegan activism. And I was thinking, well, why is that? And so problem tree number 2, I started out talking about successful entrepreneurs who are also vegan don't become champions and backers of the movement. There are precious little successful vegans who are there in the media, and they're being role models for us. We've got a couple like Dale Vince, people like Matthew Glover, perhaps, Deborah Meaden from Dragon's Den. She's talking a lot about being plant-based. She doesn't quite use the vegan world yet, but she's obviously on that journey somewhere. But they're few and far between. And so I think one of the things we need to do at Vegan Business Tribe is we need to change that. We need to link with these successful vegan entrepreneurs, perhaps in non-vegan businesses, and get them to be champions of a movement, get them to use their influence and their skills and their knowledge to bring more visibility to the vegan cause. And so that's something that we've set out to do with this problem tree as well. So again, at the bottom, zoom out slightly. So problem number 2, many successful vegan entrepreneurs aren't engaged with the wider movement, so don't use that success to generate influence, support and funding for vegan or animal rights initiatives. Now, I just said that. Anyway, so that's problem number 2. And when we look at that, there's 2 root causes or fallouts to that problem. So number 1 is this one. Veganism is seen as a controversial, even toxic topic. Now, that is something that animal agriculture and the animal products businesses have done extraordinarily well over the last few years. They've painted veganism as a topic that you might not want to go anywhere near if you are a respectable business person, because there's controversy there. Some people find it really toxic. And that fear that it might harm someone's reputation or professional prospects if they're a champion of a movement, that's real. And I know a lot of vegans who, they're very successful in their careers, but they're not in vegan businesses, and they don't like to talk about it too much because they don't want to alienate their non-vegan customers, or maybe their non-vegan staff or their business partners. So that just leads us to not having these vegan entrepreneurs actually engaging with veganism enough and engaging with the wider movement. And so what's the fallout of that? Well, businesses support other less controversial causes instead. And we see this over and over again. Businesses will support other movements, such as the gay rights movement, very happily. They will change their social media banners to represent that movement, and that's all brilliant. But will they do the same to support animal rights if they're not a vegan business? At the moment, no. So this is something that we really need to work on, because the less people who are doing that and the less companies who are doing that, that really diminishes the commercial respectability of supporting animal rights and vegan. But the second root problem that we discovered with this as well is successful entrepreneurs, they're concerned about professional identity conflict. And there might be lots of reasons behind that. So, one of the first is maybe they built up a career doing something other than food. But they think that to be a vegan entrepreneur or to represent the movement, you have to be involved with food. But their actual skill set was in a completely different industry. And if we don't have people coming from different industries and really getting involved in the movement, we're not getting those skill sets coming with them. Lots of people have built up great skill sets in other fast-growing industries, such as tech. And that's not getting adopted by vegan founders because there's not enough flow of that knowledge and that skill set coming into the vegan business sector as well. Another thing they might be worried about is, they don't yet consider themselves to be worthy to represent the vegan movement. And think back to your own vegan journey. How long did you go actually telling people that you ate a plant-based diet because you weren't yet comfortable enough saying that you were vegan? I did that for quite a while. And especially because I became from being a vegetarian to being vegan for a long time. If people would ask me about my eating preferences, or what my dietary requirements were, I wouldn't say I was vegan, but I'd say that I eat a plant-based diet. And so I think a lot of people don't consider themselves to be worthy enough yet to actually carry that vegan flag and say, yes, I'm a representative of the vegan business movement. And something else that we discovered as well is this fear of being seen as hypocritical. So quite a lot of successful people who are vegan, their businesses and their success doesn't necessarily come from the vegan sector. So they may have businesses, especially if it's food business, that do make animal products as well. Perhaps, elsewhere in their background, they might have leftovers from before they were vegan. And we see a lot of this with vegans who've got animals in their lives. Maybe they've got horses that they look after and things like that as well. That's one thing we see with Deborah Meaden from Dragon's Den. She doesn't use the V word vegan a lot because she knows she's got all these hangovers from her previous life and the companies that she's invested with and is involved with. A lot of those are not vegan companies as well. So there's that fear of being seen hypocritical. If you start standing up for vegan rights and the vegan movement, people are very going to quickly find those things in your background that maybe don't align with that. And that's a real fear that people have. And so there is little motivation to take this risk of being labelled a vegan or an activist or even a hypocrite by, standing up for the vegan rights movement when you are a professional entrepreneur. But what that means is it just reduces the visibility of vegan entrepreneurs in mainstream vegan business. And less visibility means less inspiration. Other vegans won't think, oh yeah, I could use my entrepreneurship and my business skill set as a form of activism as well. But it also means that we're attracting less corporate funding and backing of vegan and animal rights causes as well. Because again, looking at the gay rights movement, and I'm really studying how they've become respectable in business because it's fantastic. It's absolutely amazing, but it's something that we can draw inspiration from as well. The companies who back the gay rights business movements, these are huge companies like Google and Amazon and Coca-Cola. Now, these companies weren't necessarily founded by gay founders. They will have gay champions within that business who are using their influence to actually try and help gay rights. And that's brilliant. And that's a model that we can take from veganism as well. There will be people, very high-ranking people in top jobs and positions at very big companies who are personally vegan themselves. And if we can connect with them, and if we can actually convince them to use that influence and to use their place within that business to move some of that corporate funding and backing towards vegan businesses, vegan initiatives, animal rights campaigns, and things like that as well, then that's going to bring a lot of funding into the movement that we currently don't have. And that's, I think, something that we can play a role with at Vegan Business Tribe as well. Okay, so I think this was quite a long one this time, but hopefully you found that useful because, again, if you're doing this for your business, this is something that you can go through as well. You can say, well, what actual problem am I trying to solve with my business? Make one of these problem trees, go through logically, what is each step of that problem? Why is that there? How does my business fit into that? And it's just a really good ideas generation process because reading ahead of the next chapter, again, I'm an overachiever, so I can do that. One of the next things we're going to do is we're going to change this problem tree into a solution tree. And so that's going to be really great. So taking each one of those problems we've got, saying, well, what's the solution to that? And that gives us the whole range of, services that we need to provide. It tells us what we need to focus on as a business as well, and just helps us build a more robust business model. But what it also does is I can take this to people who are interested in Vegan Business Tribe and backing what we're doing. I can say, look, these are the problems that we've identified, and then this is how we're going to solve those problems with your help, with your backing, and with you coming on board as stakeholders to get involved too. Right. So I think that's enough of me talking now. So sorry that I've gone on too long to this one, but hopefully you found that really interesting. And I'll catch you on the next one.